Hi there, future teacher. Welcome back to your FTCE Professional Education Test Prep, brought to you by TeacherPreps.com. In this video, we're covering Competency 8, Cross-Curriculum Literacy Strategies. This competency is worth about 7% of the exam, roughly 6 questions. It covers how you support reading and writing across all content areas, build vocabulary systematically, teach comprehension strategies that work in every subject, and use text complexity and data to differentiate literacy instruction. Even though this is a smaller section of the exam, these skills show up in real classroom practice every single day. Before we dive in, we put together a free study guide workbook that goes along with this video. It has all the key terms, comparison tables, practice questions, and space for your own notes. Grab your free copy from the link in the description. This video is brought to you by TeacherPreps.com. Our FTCE 083 prep includes a complete study guide covering all 8 competencies, full-length timed practice tests that match the real exam format, and AI-scored constructed response practice. It's free to get started. All right, that was our plug. For the rest of this video, it's go time. Grab your pen and paper. Here's what we'll cover in Competency 8. First, text reading skills, including the 5 major text structures and before, during, after reading strategies. Second, content area vocabulary, including Beck's 3 tiers, the Marzano 6-step vocabulary process, the Freyer model, morphology instruction, and cognate instruction for English language learners. Third, reading comprehension, including reciprocal teaching, close reading, and think-alouds. Fourth, literacy for higher-order thinking, including Socratic seminars, argument writing, and QAR. Fifth, text complexity, including the 3 dimensions, and how to support struggling readers with grade-level content. And sixth, data-driven literacy differentiation with flexible grouping based on assessment data. Let's get into it. Let's start with text reading skills, specifically the 5 major text structures. Understanding text structure is critical because it helps students organize information as they read, especially in content areas like science and social studies. The first structure is description. In a description structure, the author provides details about a topic without a particular sequence or comparison. Think of a passage describing the features of a rainforest ecosystem. It lists characteristics: warm temperatures, high rainfall, dense canopy layers. Signal words include, for example, such as characteristics include, and in addition. The second structure is sequence, also called chronological order. Events or steps are presented in the order they happen. A history text describing the events leading to the American Revolution uses sequence. A science text explaining the steps of the water cycle uses sequence. Signal words include first, next, then, finally, before, and after. The third text structure is cause and effect. The author explains why something happened and what resulted from it. For example, a science passage explaining that deforestation causes soil erosion, which leads to flooding downstream. Signal words include because, as a result, therefore, consequently, since, and due to. The fourth structure is compare and contrast. The author examines similarities and differences between 2 or more subjects. A social studies passage might compare democratic and authoritarian governments. Signal words include similarly, in contrast, on the other hand, both, however, and unlike. The fifth structure is problem and solution. The author presents a problem and then describes 1 or more solutions. For example, a health text describing childhood obesity as a problem and then proposing nutrition education and increased physical activity as solutions. Signal words include the problem is, 1 solution, as a result, and this was resolved by. On the exam, you may be asked to identify which text structure a passage uses or which graphic organizer best matches a structure. For example, a Venn diagram maps to compare and contrast, a flowchart maps to sequence, and a T-chart maps to cause and effect or problem and solution. Now let's cover before, during, after reading strategies. These are strategies you teach students to use at each phase of reading. Before reading, the goal is to activate prior knowledge and set a purpose. Strategies include previewing headings, subheadings, bold terms, and visuals. You might use a KWL chart. Students write what they know, what they want to learn, and after reading, what they learned. Anticipation guides are another powerful before-reading tool. Students read a set of statements and mark whether they agree or disagree before reading the text. This activates prior knowledge and creates a purpose for reading, because now they're reading to confirm or revise their predictions. During reading, the goal is to monitor comprehension. Strategies include annotating the text, asking questions, making connections to prior knowledge, visualizing, and identifying the main idea of each section. Sticky notes or margin notes help students track their thinking as they read. After reading, the goal is to consolidate and extend understanding. Strategies include summarizing, discussing with peers, completing graphic organizers, and responding in writing. Students revisit the KWL chart to fill in the L column and check their anticipation guide predictions. Next up, content area vocabulary. This is a critical topic for Competency 8. The exam draws heavily from Isabel Beck's three-tier vocabulary model. Tier 1 words are basic, everyday words that most students already know from daily conversation. Words like house, run, happy, and big. These rarely need direct instruction for native English speakers. Tier 2 words are high-frequency academic words that appear across multiple content areas. Words like analyze, evidence, contrast, significant, and evaluate. These are the words the exam expects you to focus on most. A student encounters the word analyze in science, social studies, math, and English language arts. Teaching Tier 2 words gives students the biggest return on investment because they unlock comprehension across every subject. Tier 3 words are domain-specific technical terms that belong to a particular subject area. Words like photosynthesis in science, denominator in math, legislature in social studies, and onomatopoeia in English language arts. These words are taught within the context of the specific subject. On the exam, the correct answer for where to focus vocabulary instruction is almost always Tier 2 words, because they have the widest impact across disciplines. Now let's cover Marzano's 6-step vocabulary process. This is a research-based approach to teaching vocabulary that goes far beyond having students copy definitions. Step 1. The teacher provides a description, explanation, or example of the new term. Notice this is not a dictionary definition. It's an accessible, student-friendly explanation. For example, for the word erosion, you might say, erosion is when water, wind, or ice slowly wears away soil and rock, carrying pieces of it to a new location. Step 2. Students restate the description in their own words. This forces them to process the meaning rather than passively copying. If a student can explain the term in their own language, they understand it. Step 3. Students create a non-linguistic representation. This means drawing a picture, diagram, or symbol that shows what the word means. For erosion, a student might draw rain washing soil down a hillside. This visual encoding creates a second pathway for memory. Step 4. Students periodically do activities that help them add to their knowledge of the term. This could include comparing words, categorizing related terms, or finding examples in new contexts. Step 5. Students periodically discuss the terms with one another. Talking about vocabulary with peers deepens understanding. Step 6. Students periodically participate in games that allow them to play with the terms. Activities like vocabulary bingo, matching games, or word sorts create multiple low-stakes exposures to the words. The Freyer model is a graphic organizer specifically designed for vocabulary instruction. It has 4 quadrants surrounding the target word in the center. The 4 quadrants are definition in student-friendly language, characteristics or essential features, examples, and non-examples. Here's why non-examples matter so much. If you're teaching the word mammal, the examples quadrant might include dog, whale, and bat. The non-examples quadrant might include lizard, penguin, and goldfish. The non-examples force students to think about what makes a mammal and what disqualifies other animals. This boundary thinking is what builds deep understanding. Now let's talk about morphology instruction. Morphology is the study of word parts, prefixes, suffixes, and root words. Teaching students to break words into meaningful parts gives them a strategy for figuring out unfamiliar words independently. For example, if a student knows that bio means life and ology means the study of, they can figure out that biology means the study of life. Common prefixes to teach include unmeaning not, re-meaning again, pre-meaning before, and mis meaning wrong. Common roots include rupt meaning break, ject meaning throw, and struct meaning build. Students who understand morphology can decode thousands of words they've never seen before. Word walls are visual displays of important vocabulary posted in the classroom for ongoing reference. Effective word walls are organized by category or topic, not just alphabetically. They are interactive, meaning students actively use the words in their writing and speaking. A science word wall during a unit on ecosystems might group terms under headings like producers, consumers, and decomposers. Students are expected to reference the word wall during discussions and writing tasks. A word wall that students never look at is just a decoration. The effective practice is to actively direct students to the wall, quiz them using the words, and update it regularly. Now let's discuss cognate instruction for English language learners. Cognates are words in two languages that share a similar spelling, pronunciation, and meaning because they share a common linguistic origin. For Spanish-speaking ELLs, English is full of cognates. Animal in English is animal in Spanish. Problem is problema. Important is importante. Family is familia. Teaching students to recognize cognates is a powerful bridge strategy because it connects new English vocabulary to knowledge they already have. However, you also need to teach students about false cognates, words that look similar but mean different things. For example, embarazada in Spanish means pregnant, not embarrassed. Carpeta means folder, not carpet. Teaching both true cognates and false cognates helps ELLs build accurate vocabulary knowledge. Now let's cover reading comprehension strategies, starting with reciprocal teaching. Reciprocal teaching was developed by Anne-Marie Palingsar and Brown. It is one of the most heavily researched comprehension strategies, and it comes up frequently on the exam. Reciprocal teaching involves 4 strategies that students use in a structured group discussion about a text. The 4 strategies are predicting, questioning, clarifying, and summarizing. Here's how each one works. Predicting. Before reading a section, students use titles, headings, and prior knowledge to predict what the text will be about. This activates background knowledge and sets a purpose for reading. Questioning. After reading a section, students generate their own questions about the text. This teaches them to think like a teacher. Instead of passively reading, they actively identify what's important. Clarifying. Students identify words, phrases, or ideas that are confusing and work together to resolve the confusion. They might reread, use context clues, or break apart unfamiliar words. Summarizing. Students condense the key ideas of the section into their own words. This requires them to distinguish main ideas from supporting details. Here's what makes reciprocal teaching powerful and what the exam will test. The teacher starts by modeling all 4 strategies explicitly, thinking aloud while demonstrating predicting, questioning, clarifying, and summarizing. Then, gradually, students take over the role of teacher in small groups. One student leads the predicting, another leads the questioning, another leads the clarifying, and another leads the summarizing. The roles rotate with each new text section. This gradual release of responsibility is key. The teacher moves from model to facilitator to observer as students internalize the strategies. On the exam, if you see a question about a comprehension strategy where students take turns leading discussion using 4 specific roles, that's reciprocal teaching. Next is close reading. Close reading involves multiple passes through the same text, each with a different purpose. The first pass is for getting the gist. Students read the text to understand the basic meaning. What is this text about? What's the main idea? The second pass is for analyzing craft and structure. Students look at how the author organized the text, what vocabulary choices the author made, what text structure is being used, and how the argument is built. The third pass is for synthesizing and evaluating. Students connect the text to other texts, evaluate the author's claims, form their own opinions, and draw conclusions. A critical feature of close reading is that students engage with the text itself, not with background lectures or summaries. The text is the primary source of evidence for all discussion and writing. Now let's discuss think-alouds. A think-aloud is when the teacher reads a text aloud and verbalizes their internal thinking process as they go. For example, this paragraph says the population tripled, So I'm going to reread this to make sure I understand the cause. Oh, it says immigration increased because of the new railroad, so that explains the population growth. Think alouds make invisible cognitive processes visible. Students hear what skilled reading sounds like on the inside. This is especially powerful for struggling readers who don't know what it means to make a prediction or monitor comprehension because they've never heard anyone do it. Let's move to literacy for higher-order thinking. The first strategy is the Socratic seminar. A Socratic seminar is a structured, student-led discussion centered on a text or set of texts. The teacher poses an open-ended question, and students discuss it using evidence from the text. The teacher's role is facilitator, not lecturer. You might ask a clarifying question or redirect if the discussion goes off track, but the students are doing the intellectual work. The key feature of a Socratic seminar is that students must cite evidence. They can't just share opinions. They have to point to specific passages, quotes, or data to support their claims. For example, in a social studies class reading about westward expansion, the teacher might pose the question, was westward expansion justified? Use evidence from the documents to support your position. Students debate back and forth, referencing specific evidence from the text. Socratic seminars build critical thinking, active listening, evidence-based argumentation, and respectful academic discourse. Great progress, future teacher. You have covered the 5 text structures, before, during, after reading strategies, Beck's 3-tier vocabulary model, Marzano's 6-step vocabulary process, the Freire model, word walls, cognates, reciprocal teaching, close reading, think alouds, and Socratic seminars. But you still need to master argument writing, QER, the 3 dimensions of disciplinary literacy, flexible grouping, and the 4 practice questions. For the full study guide and timed practice tests, visit TeacherPreps.com. Link in the description.